Good morning. My name is Patrick Allen, and I'm an interviewer for the Veterans History Project for the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C. And the project here in the Cincinnati area is done through the Cincinnati-Hamilton County Public Library under the direction of Brian Powers. And we have the privilege and honor today here at Amber Acres in Cincinnati in the Kenwood area of interviewing a World War II veteran by the name of Albert Varhola. Today is May the 24th, 2022. And we're here at his residence. And Mr. Varhola, thank you for doing this interview.
You're very welcome.
Thank you for your service.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Do you go by Albert or you go by Al?
Al.
Al, okay. Yeah. Al, can you tell us when and where you were born?
I was born in Portsmouth, Ohio, June 26, 1924.
And what were your mother and father's names?
John Varhola and Verna Varhola.
Now, you were born in Portsmouth. Did you stay in Portsmouth for a good while?
Yes, I grew up there. I graduated from high school in Portsmouth, and then went into the military from Portsmouth.
All right. Tell me a little bit about your family. What did your father do?
He was a tool and die maker in a steel plant that made drawed wire. They made the dies and reamed them out to pull the rods through to make whatever kind of wire size you wanted.
So what was the name of the company? Do you remember that?
Detroit, well, he worked for it, was Wheeling Steel Corporation.
All right, and that was right on the river, wasn't it?
Right on the river, yes.
I've driven through Portsmouth a number of times, and that was a pretty big plant.
Yeah, at the time, yes.
How long did your dad work for Wheeling Steel there at Detroit?
Oh, he worked till he was 60. I think he retired when he was 65, and he moved there, and he came there from a steel plant in Pennsylvania in 1923, the year before I was born.
Okay.
He worked in a steel plant along the Monongahela River in Pittsburgh, in the Pennsylvania area.
All right.
Before that, but when they opened up that wire mill in Portsmouth, his boss was hired by Wheeling Steel, and he convinced my father to come with him to Wheeling Steel in Portsmouth.
Good. Did your mother work outside the home?
No, she's just a homemaker all the time.
Where was your father from? Where was he born?
My father was born in a little coal mine village in Pennsylvania. I don't recall the name of the village. It was a coal mine place in the Pittsburgh area, not too far. But when he was 5 years old, his father was killed in the coal mine accident.
Oh.
And his mother, they had immigrated. He and his father and mother had immigrated from Europe.
Where in Europe?
Czechoslovakia. But so when he was killed, she had no means. She had three girls and my father, and she had no means of keeping him, no income, So she had property in Czechoslovakia, so she took her children back to Czechoslovakia when he was 5 years old, and he went to school there. But in Czechoslovakia, in addition to going to school, you did a trade work. So he also learned the blacksmith trade while he was in high school.
Interesting.
And of course, when he was 18 years old, since he was born in this country, he came back to the United States,
Okay.
And he was only here about a year or two, and then World War II. He was drafted and served in France in World War One. World War One.
World War One. He was in France.
Yes.
Was he in the army?
Army.
How long was he in the service in World War One?
About 3 years.
Did he have any battle wounds or?
No, he was lucky. He had suffered no wounds of any kind.
Was he in the infantry?
In the infantry, in the trenches there. Yeah.
Well, he was lucky.
Yes, he was lucky.
So, where did you go to grade school?
Well, I went to. I started in public school and near my house for 2 years, for 5 years, I mean, rather, and then the Catholic school I lived quite a ways from the Catholic school, so when they got a school bus, then I transferred to the Catholic school when I was in the 5th grade.
So when before you went to the Catholic school, did you walk to school?
Yes, it was in walking distance, yes.
And so Catholic school opens up. What was the name of the school? Do you remember?
Well, St. Mary's.
St. Mary's. And you went there through the 8th grade?
And high school. They had a high school too. They had both grade school and high school.
When did you graduate from high school?
1942.
Now, when you were in high school, did you work after school or on the weekends or in the summers?
No, I played football and basketball. So we had to go practice football and basketball after school.
What position did you play in basketball?
Basketball, I was a guard.
And how about football?
I was a guard in that, guard in football too.
There's some water if you need some, anytime.
Thank you.
How did your teams do in high school?
Well, you know, we were small. The football team did fairly well. We played a lot of bigger schools than us.
Sure.
For Dayton Chaminade offered us $700 to come up and play them on a Sunday afternoon. So we came up and played them, and they beat us, I think, 20-0.
Now that was an all-boys school at the time.
Yes, it was.
And your school was co-ed.
Co-ed.
So after high school, were you drafted or did you enlist?
Well, I'll tell you the story. Right after, when I graduated in June of '42, in July, me and one other guy that I played ball with on school went to. You had to go to Columbus. We wanted to join the Navy Air Corps, to join the Air Corps. So we went to. The only place you could do that was go to Columbus. So we drove up there. And
who drove?
My friend drove up.
In his car, his dad's?
His car, yeah, I guess.
Now, did your family have a car when you were a kid?
Yes.
What kind of car did your dad drive?
He drove a Dodge, and my mother won a Ford in the 50s. Some lodge from Minford was selling chances, and she took one chance, and she won the Ford sedan.
Oh, good. And did you get your driver's license?
Yeah, I didn't have my driver's license.
Right.
Only after I came back from the war. I didn't drive at all before that.
Okay, so what was your buddy's name that went to Columbus with you?
Oh, let's see, Ted Stratton, I think.
Ted Stratton?
I think. Yeah.
Well, why did you pick the Navy?
Well, we just, I don't know, we thought we'd like to be Navy pilots, you know. But he flunked the academics part, and I passed the academic part, but it wasn't quite heavy enough. So they my weight didn't quite measure up to what it should be. So they instructed me to come back and set a date for my return. He told me to eat a lot of bananas and come back, and maybe I would pass the weight.
Well, how far underweight were you?
Well, not too far, but it was maybe like
4 or 5 pounds?
Yeah, somewhere over down there. I don't recall exactly. But what happened in the meantime? I got caught up in the draft. So in Huntington, West Virginia, was when they brought all those people at certain draft time. So I went through the procedure, and when I came back, they rejected me, and because the X-ray said I had a scar on my lung. But I knew that wasn't right because they took my X-ray when up in Columbus when I was in the Navy, and everything was all right.
Okay.
So when they left, when I left, they told me, although you're failed now, you're subject to future recalls for draft second time.
Okay.
So what happened. That was the story. So my sister was married to a guy right out of high school, and when he was a child, his mother died of childbirth, and his grandparents raised him, and his father remarried, and he didn't. His wife didn't want to have. Wasn't interested in
children.
In that him being in their family. So.
Okay.
But anyway, as he went down to New Orleans, and he became quite with the inspection department of all the ships that come in, he became an official in there. So he dealt a lot with all the ships that came in, inspect them.
Sure.
In New Orleans, and so he got a hold of my son. He said, "You're about to get drafted." He said, "I know it." He said, "Why don't you come down here, and I can get you in the Merchant Marines without any experience."
Okay.
Because he knew all the ship owners. So
well, before we get into that, what was your sister's name?
Irene.
Her last name?
Knowles.
K-N-O-L-E-S?
L-E-S, yes.
Is she still living?
No, she passed away about 4 years ago, and they retired in Arizona.
What kind of a career did your sister have?
Just a housewife.
Okay. And
she never worked. She had 3 children.
Are they still living?
One daughter's dead. She has 1 daughter living and 1 son.
What's her daughter's name? Do you remember?
Her daughter?
Yes.
One was let's see.
How about her son? Do you remember?
His name was Skip. Hugh Knowles. So he was named after his dad.
Okay, but they called him Skip?
They called him Skip. I gave him that nickname. Well, one daughter lives in Kentucky here, in Kentucky. They later moved, in later years, they moved down the Cincinnati area.
Now, besides your sister, you had a brother.
Yeah, my brother.
And what was his name?
Rudolph.
And was he called Rudy?
Rudy, yeah.
And what did Rudy do?
Rudy was a pilot in the Air Force. He went to Ohio University, same time I did, because I went after the war and he was in there, and he got a degree in photography, but he was in the ROTC program, And he switched from the Army to the Air Corps and was a pilot, a fighter pilot. He stayed in the States for about a year, and then he was transferred to Germany. And he was in Germany for about a year and a half. And on takeoff, his plane blew up and killed him when he was 25 years old.
Ooh, was he married?
No, he wasn't married.
Was he older or younger?
Younger, 5 years younger than me.
So how about Irene? Was she older or younger?
2 years older than me.
When did your father John pass away?
John, well, let's see.
About?
He was 83 years old. Let's see. He passed away. I would say about 71 or something like that, I think.
And how about your mother? Did she outlive him?
Oh, yes, she lived to be 99 years old.
Oh, good. So you got good genes.
Yes. She was almost 100. She was pushing. She was just a month away from being 100 when she died.
So you're a couple of years away from 100.
Yes, yes.
Well, okay. It's sorry for the little detour. So let's get back to your talking about becoming a merchant mariner.
Yeah.
So did you go down to New Orleans?
Well, no, I didn't go, but he convinced me to go. My brother-in-law convinced me to go to do that before that. When they draft you again, you know you're going to. That X-ray was false. You might get in the Army. So he convinced me. So I went to St. Petersburg. That's where they trained merchant marines to be merchant seamen.
So did you pass the physical that time?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Nothing wrong with the lung at all.
No, no.
So about when was it that you were accepted into the Merchant Marines?
Well, I went to the academy.
Okay. When was that?
Right after that. I was 18 years old. It was September of '42. August of '42. I went down to the merchant training center.
And did you have your training in St. Pete?
Yes.
How long was your training?
No, only like I would say about 2.5 months or something, 3 months.
What did you learn during your 2.5 months
well,
training?
Well, you decided whether you wanted to work, be in the engine room or on deck, be on deck or the engine room, and so I chose the engine room. So they trained you on engine, the training for being in the engine room.
All right. Now, somebody that could be listening to your interview and watching you years from now, why don't you explain what the Merchant Marines does? What was that branch of the military?
Well, the Merchant Marine ships, freighters, carried all the cargo during the war. But the ship I was on was a freighter, but they converted it to be a troop ship. So that's all we did was transport armies. It was the Army took the ship over and converted that. It was built as a freighter, but they converted it to a troop ship.
All right.
It took a lot of work. So it was launched in Pascagoula, Mississippi, as a freighter in 1941. But then they took it when the Army decided they needed some ships, it was in Boston, and it took almost a year to convert it to become a troop ship.
What was the name of the ship?
General George W. Goethals was named after the general who built the Panama Canal.
What was his last name?
Goethals, Goethals. George W. Goethals. He was the general that built the Panama Canal.
Well, did that ship that they converted, did it make any trips carrying supplies?
No, just I think just one ship, and then the Army decided to take it over. It was a large freighter at the time, and so the Army got it. They took it to Boston to convert it.
Right.
Because if you're going to carry, say, 1,800 troops, you got to have a lot of
living space.
Living space and like refrigeration to feed that many on the ship, you know, and so it took them almost a year.
So during that year, what did you do?
Well, that was from 41 to 42 was when the conversion was going on, and I got on it just as it had been turned over, when it was converted and turned on.
All right.
To given to the Army.
So after your 2.5 months of training, where did they send you?
Well, they sent me after my 2.5 years.
2.5 months.
They sent me to New Orleans to be assigned, and I got assigned to a ship that was built at the same place in Pascagoula, Mississippi. It was as a freighter also, and I got on it. We had to take a shakedown cruise, so we took a shakedown cruise to Galveston and back.
Explain what a shakedown cruise is.
To see everything's okay, you know, and to see if all the equipment runs right and that sort of thing.
All right.
And there were some faults with it, you know, things. So we came back to Pascagoula.
For the repairs?
For the repairs. I don't know how long it would be. In the meantime, I got a call from my brother-in-law that he had sailed on a smaller vessel that called the Yarmouth, that was the Army was using from that belonged to Nova Scotia. It was a cruise ship, you know,
all right.
A passenger ship, and it could only carry about 700 troops. It was small, but anyway. He got off of it because my wife was staying with the buddy in Upper New York. She was about to have a baby, and when he got back, that ship left. He got back to get back on the Yarmouth,
but he was late.
But it left, and it had a sister ship named the Dartmouth. And it was hit by a torpedo, and with 700 troops on them, and the Dartmouth lost 700 troops at sea. It was a sister ship to the ship that
Where was it torpedoed?
Well, going up in the North Atlantic.
Was it in a convoy?
Well, yeah, I suppose. I don't know, yeah.
Well, most of the merchant ships did go in convoys.
Oh, well, yeah, we always went in convoy. We went in convoy. Every trip I made over, we went in convoy.
Okay, so
So when he was there, so he called me and said, I can get you on this ship is about to sail. We'll be sailing. And so I left that ship. It's a ship. I don't know what they were going to do with me there, whether they would have. I don't know how much repairs they'd have to do after the shakedown, so I left. But anyway, so I went up to Boston immediately and got on the ship, and
How did you get to Boston?
I flew.
Was that a commercial or a military plane?
No, just a commercial.
Commercial?
I paid my way, to get there.
Do you know
because-
what airlines it was?
Oh no, I don't know. Probably
Okay.
American. I don't know. I don't recall. Because he told me to get up there right away. He made sure he asked the chief engineer if he had room for me, and he did. So he told me to get up there as quick as I could. So I did.
So when you had the option of being in the engine room or on deck, you chose the engine room?
Yes.
Why did you do that?
Well, because my brother-in-law was in the engine room too. So
Okay.
But I was more mechanically inclined anyway to be in the engine room.
So how long were you in Boston before you got on board ship?
Oh, I just got on when just as soon as I got there. I got on the ship.
What ship were you on?
The George W. Goethals.
The George Goethals?
That's what they named it. Yeah.
All right. You sailed out of Boston?
We sailed out of Boston. Yeah, Boston and later on New York more. At first we sailed out of Boston. The first 2 or 3 trips we made to Europe.
How big a ship was that troop ship? How many?
It was big, pretty big, about almost 900 feet long.
Well, how many troops did you carry?
About 1,800.
What was your job down in the engine room?
Well, I came out as the jobs in the engine room are firemen, which cleans the burn, fires the boilers. Or one of the other jobs is water tender. You keep the water in the boilers at a certain level, or oiler. An oiler takes care of all the equipment that rotates and has oil, has to be oiled, and so the oilers take care. That's what an oiler does.
So what kind of fuel did you have?
Crude oil, dark crude oil.
And do you know how many gallons or pounds you?
Yeah, thousands of gallons.
You had enough to make it all the way across?
Oh yes, and back.
When you made your first trip, where did you go?
Glasgow, Scotland.
Glasgow, Scotland?
Got the Firth of Clyde. Yeah.
Did you have any difficulties on the way over with any submarines? Any U-boats?
No, we were in the convoy. There were probably 60 or 70 ships in the convoy.
And what kind of protection?
Protection. The first trip we made, the only protection we had, there was a light cruiser was a convoy commander, Navy. We always had either a heavy cruiser or a light battleship was always led to the convoys, and because we had the soldiers, we had human beings, we were always close to the troop, the convoy commander ship.
Did you have any destroyers also?
Well,
escorting?
the first trip we didn't have because we were short. When we first started out, but some English destroyers came and met us up in northern Newfoundland, up in the northern, because we didn't have enough escort. So they came down to help protect us. The first trip we made only.
Well, tell me about your trip. How many hours a day were you down there in the engine room doing your duties?
Well, you work 4 4 hours watches, 4 on and 8 off. Like 8 to 4, 12 to 4, 4 to 8, and 8 to 12.
So what did you do during your time off your shift?
Well, you just and you just we lived in tight quarters, you know, for like four to a cabin, to a little small cabin with 4 people in it. So you just stayed around there.
What kind of bed did you have to sleep on?
Oh, just a bunk type bed, but they
were
two
stacked on top of each other.
Yeah, two on each side of the room. Yeah,
and
carry.
Which did you get, the top or the bottom?
Yeah, I got the top at first, but when you get seniority, if you're there longer, you get the bottom after a while.
Which one did you like the best?
Well, I like the bottom best.
How was the food on board?
Well, it was pretty good.
And what did you have to eat with the other troops, or did your crew?
No, didn't eat with the troops at all. No, we had our own mess hall.
About how many crewmen did you have besides the troops?
Crew? Oh, I'd say engine room crew. We'd have three of each.
Boilers.
Yeah, the engine. We'd have a fireman. We would have 3 firemen, 3 water tenders, 3 oilers.
All right.
And then we'd have a third engineer, who was the officer in charge of the engine room during his term, and we'd have 3 of those. And then you'd have a second engineer. He also stood a watch. Two third engineers and a second engineer stood watches. Those watches, and then you had a first engineer who was the right-hand man for the chief engineer, and he primarily worked during the daytime on the ship, doing repair work. You know, that way. He didn't stand any watches.
Did you have any Navy personnel on to man any armament?
Yes, we did.
What kind of armament did you have on the ship?
Just
50 calibers?
Yeah, caliber, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And
then we had one, and the signalman was also a Navy guy, because he was in contact with the battleship or cruiser, the convoy commanding ship all the time. So he worked with the deck crew. You know,
well, do you know if you had to maintain radio silence when you were crossing the ocean?
Yeah, I'm sure they did. I don't, you know, that was with the deck department, so I'm not that for me. I'm sure you did, yeah.
About what month did you make your first trip?
First trip was in November of '42.
How was the sea at that time?
Very rough. Well, it's always rough in North Atlantic.
How far up did you go? Did you get as far as Iceland? Or?
We went up as far as upper right around Iceland, and then went around the north of Ireland, and then came down the Irish Sea to Glasgow when we would go to Glasgow.
So during that first trip, did you become aware of any submarine U-boat threats?
Oh, yeah, you would hear depth charges dropped, or you could hear depth charges being dropped.
And did that happen on the first trip?
No, on the first trip I didn't hear any. I didn't hear any. But
how long did it take you to get from Boston to Glasgow?
12 days. You could only go as fast as a ship in the convoy.
Sure.
And most of the ships, freighters, were Liberty ships, and they could only do around 11 knots to 12
Okay.
knots.
Okay.
We could do around 20 knots, but you could only go as fast as, and most of your, because they built those Liberty ships real fast, but they were slow.
And you didn't want to leave any stragglers because they would be sitting ducks.
Well, yeah, and then they would lose valuable material that
Right.
that they needed on the siege. Yeah.
So how long were you in Glasgow to unload your troops?
Oh well, we were there. We would be there, but you had to only come back till they would schedule a convoy going back.
Well, how long were you there that first time? If you remember?
Yeah, we were there probably 10 days because the military always had us go back in convoys too because they didn't want to lose any ships.
Sure. So what did you do with your time off there in Glasgow?
Well, the only time I'd go up to we were down in a suburb south of Glasgow on the Clyde River, but we'd go up to Glasgow, go to there. It was about the only thing you could do was there was a USO
All right.
place to you could go to at night.
Did you see any entertainers from the U.S. And the USO?
No, I didn't, but I had a good experience. It was, of course, blackout. And then November, dark. It got early
Sure.
dark up there too. But I was going there, and it was dark, and I ran into a girl and accidentally knocked her down. And I picked her up and when I took her inside, God, her teeth were gone. So I ran out of there again, and I ran into another girl, but but I didn't knock her down. So I took her in, and she was real nice.
The first girl, did you knock her teeth out?
No.
She just didn't have them, huh?
Yeah. But anyway, I was fortunate. This girl, she during the war in England, you either had to work at what they called an essential industry, or they would draft the girls in the military. So, but she worked at a Red Hackle Scotch distillery, and I guess that was essential.
Essential.
Anyway, so she could get me a couple bottles of scotch every day. So, not every day, but while I was there on the trip. So I'd give her $10 for scotch, and she'd get me maybe 3 or 4, and I would be able to sell 2 or 3, two of the 3, and we'd save one for ourselves. But when I went back to Scotland, I'd always be sure to call her up again.
Good.
To Glasgow,
So you got to know her fairly well?
Yeah.
So after your about 10 days there, then there was another convoy coming back?
Back, yeah, kind of coming back.
When the convoy came back, was it carrying any wounded troops, or
No, we didn't.
just empty?
Empty. We were empty, yeah.
And again, you had protecting ships?
Oh, yeah. The same commander and everything probably brought us back.
On the return trip, did you have any run-ins with U-boats? You hear any depth charges?
Oh, yeah. Like you'd be in the engine room, you'd hear depth charges, but that doesn't. I don't know whether they actually thought they would drop depth charges anytime they heard something. I'm sure they thought they heard.
Anytime the sonar picked up?
Picked up, sonar picked up anything.
Well, when you would hear those depth charges, what would that make you feel like?
Oh, well, and it even shake the ship a little bit, yeah.
Well, how'd you feel? Did you make you more nervous?
No, a little, I guess, yeah. But the depth charges, I knew that we were in the center there. The freighters had a lot more to worry about on the outside. that
Now,
does.
when the freighters came back, were they also empty?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Now, where did you come back to after that
Well,
first trip?
we came back to Boston. We sailed out of Boston maybe the first few times, then mostly out of New York. After that, it was New York.
How did you do physically with the ocean waves and the high seas?
Well, the high seas, you just had to grab and hold sometime, but I never got seasick.
Good.
I had a lot of my buddies that worked that did get seasick, but fortunately for me, I never got seasick.
Well, how long were you back in Boston before you made your next trip?
Oh, probably not very long, probably till they could form another convoy. It depended on how long the all the brain work was doing that. It could get the ships together.
Get the ships together
and get the convoy together. There'd be 50, 60 ships in the convoy.
What would you do on land when they were building up the convoy? What were your duties?
Well, we just we all did repair work.
So all the time you went back and forth, did you stay on the same ship?
All the time. I stayed on there during the whole time of almost 4 years.
How many trips did you make across the ocean?
I made 34, 35 trips across the Atlantic.
Where are some of the places you went to besides Glasgow?
Oh, Liverpool, Belfast, Ireland, Liverpool, Swansea.
Swansea in Wales?
Wales, it's Cardiff, Wales. That's basically where they stayed. We didn't go to Southampton, for instance, because that was in between France and too much danger of. So we always went around Northern Ireland and came down, no matter which way we went.
Well, how about Murmansk? Did you ever make any trips up to Murmansk?
No, we didn't send any troops to Murmansk.
There's a lot of equipment that went up there for the Russians.
Oh yeah, a lot of yeah.
And I've talked to other people about that being very dangerous.
Yeah, very dangerous. That's where more merchant Marines lost their lives on the Murmansk run than ever. But I was on the troop ship.
Did you have any trips that you remember having any particular difficulty?
Yeah, one trip when we were coming back empty,
Sure.
on the end convoy.
Where were you coming back from?
Coming back from, I don't know, I can't remember whether it's Belfast or was it's somewhere, or Liverpool or someplace.
Now, Belfast is on Northern Ireland.
Yeah, Northern Ireland.
And Liverpool's on Western England.
Yeah, but down the Irish, yeah. When we were coming back, the Navy gun crew, on the fantail of the ship,
That's the back of it.
back of the ship, was the magazine storage room for the turret gun, and it was mounted above there. The seas were very rough that day, and apparently one of the Navy men, when they worked, did not fasten the latch real good on the ship.
On the gun?
On the magazine room.
Okay.
And the rays were heavy, and it swung the door open, and water came in to the magazine room. Well, the magazine room was right above the steering room. The steering room was below it. And the only access to the steering room was from the magazine room down the ladder. And it shorted out the rudder in this convoy. And we couldn't steer the ship. And it started listing back and forth. And the convoy went off and left us.
By yourselves?
By ourselves. Yeah, the convoy had to keep going. They couldn't help us any. So we were, and that happened. I was on the 4 to 8 watch at that time, and it happened right around a little after 4 o'clock, and then we had a list where we were
Just rolling back and forth.
listing for almost 45 degrees. We had that, and it went on that way all night long. We were out there all night long. It was dark because we was up in northern Newfoundland area, you know.
And your electric was shorted out, so you didn't have any power?
They couldn't. We had power.
But couldn't
We're
steer.
all over the ship, but you just couldn't. The rudder, you couldn't steer. The deck crew couldn't steer, and so we went all night that way, and it quieted down. It quieted down a little bit. So in the morning, at the first thing in the morning, when it got daylight, they tied a rope to the chief engineer. The deckhands did, and he crawled to the back of the fantail to the room where that door was swinging open, and went down to the down the ladder to the motors, and then they took a whole lot of they tied a lot of carbon tetrachloride and a blower and everything else, and to put on to dry out the
steering equipment,
steering engine, the motors that ran the steering operated the rudder, and he finally got it dried out, and then when we did, we headed back to New York full speed ahead because we was able to go a lot faster than Conway. We got there after they did, but we got back. We were going back to New York then.
And you were able to go full speed.
Speed ahead, yeah.
Didn't have any load on or anything.
Huh?
You didn't have any load on or anything.
Oh no, well no, but you always run high going back empty because you use it up all that fuel oil that you had when you started out.
Sure.
And they switch tanks so that they take on water with the empty oil tanks. They take on water to steer, but you ride higher in the water going back empty than you do going over.
So when you're coming back, you got oil in one tank, you got water as for ballast in the other.
Well, yeah, well, yes. Well, water to need, not for ballast, but to use. We had to use a lot of water. Okay. Because you had to make up water that you lose through condensation to run the boilers. But then we also converted seawater to drinking water on the ship with evaporators. In the engine room, people did that.
How many boilers did you have on board?
Two Foster Wheeler boilers, 450-pound steam pressure.
Did you ever have any mechanical problem down there in the engine room?
Oh no. You always had minor problems, but no big ones. Not in the engine room.
So after they got the rudder room, the steering room, dried out, and you're able to go full speed back to New York.
Yeah.
Did you have any threats of any U-boats, or were you out of the danger area?
No, I don't. No, I don't think we had any. We didn't have any threats from U. We wouldn't know if we had a threat from U-boats anyway, because we didn't have any sonar equipment or anything like that. So we were by ourselves.
Let me jump back here a minute. Do you know where you were when you heard that the Japanese had bombed Pearl Harbor?
Yeah.
Where were you?
We were on our sea. We were heading to take military supply equipment from Le Havre. We left Le Havre, France, and equipment from there. We were transporting it that was going to the Pacific when it came over the ticker tape that they dropped an atomic bomb.
Dropped the atomic bomb.
And everyone said, "What's that?" You know, they didn't know what it was. But we got it over the ticker tape.
Okay.
But unfortunately, the war ended before.
Before you had to go to the Pacific.
Yeah. So they, instead of going to through the canal, they told us to come back, and they slowed us down because they figured after the war that that military unit wouldn't be needed over in.
So did you have a big party on board ship?
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, the parties on the ship were after the war was over. They converted to a war ride, and that's when we had the parties.
Now, what was that?
They converted. I stayed on the ship after the war was over. We brought troops back.
Okay.
They started bringing war brides that were married in Europe, and our ship was the war bride ship. So, for almost a year, it took us about 9 months to get all the war brides back.
You're bringing a lot of women back on board.
Just all women, and so then the entire they put on military people because some of the women had babies, and then we put a doctor on there too, to take care of the war brides.
Well, now on the way over, when you're carrying troops over to Europe, you got all men on board. Now, on the way you're bringing these war brides back. What kind of accommodations?
Well, they converted. Before we were in Brooklyn shipyard there. They made some changes in it because they had to have a lot more
privacy.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
But
Okay.
they did it in about a month. We were about a month. They were changing it over from just carrying troop and for what they needed for war brides. Probably.
Did you have any unusual experiences in any of the trips that you made bringing the war brides back over?
Well, it was a good ship. They gave us a chaplain that liked Scotch. and then he put a troop, an army troop commander on there. He was in charge of. They had I think a few nurses and a few not officers. Take care of the nursery and that sort of thing.
Did you have any babies that were delivered on board while you were coming?
No. The soldiers were all back home by then. They were back home. They came home first, and then the war brides came afterwards. But we had a chaplain that liked to drink, and the troop commander too. The commander, the military man that was head of all the army people on there. He liked it too. So. I'd get calls like down the engine room because we had from the chaplain. I remember he'd always want a grapefruit, some kind of grapefruit juice for chasers. Chasing some booze with.
And you had that down in the engine?
Well, that's where we were in charge of it. It wasn't in the engine room, but where we kept all the frozen,
Okay.
Food.
So was that part of your job to make sure that the
well, I just had the key to it. He could get in. Yeah.
Now, so you were about 17 when Japan attacked Pearl Harbor.
Yeah. Yes, I was 17.
Were you in high school then?
Yeah.
How did you find out? How did you learn?
I was listening to a ball game on Sunday afternoon when it came over the radio.
The football game?
Yeah.
Do you remember who it was?
Oh no, I don't know. But I know I was. My parents were gone, and I was home all by myself, just listening to the ball game.
And what
on
reaction?
on the radio.
What reaction did you have?
Oh gosh, you know, it scared me to death.
And when your dad got home, did you talk about it?
Yeah.
What conversation did you have with your mom and dad about Japan attacking America?
Well, they knew that I was very close to being in the military, you know, because but in 6 months I would be 18, and so I knew that probably I would end up somewhere.
You'd end up in combat somewhere?
Somewhere, yes, in some sort.
So when did you get out of the Merchant Marines?
I got out when they ran out of war brides.
About when was that?
That was in August of 46. And the reason I got out of there because school. I wanted to go to. I decided I wanted to go to college.
Okay.
So and it started in September. So I wanted to get. So I left.
Well, how did you go about becoming discharged so you could go to college? Did you have to?
You could just use. I would just quit. You know, you just leave the ship. Because by that time, I was an officer on the ship. Then after the invasion, we went into the the war had been going on for a while. You could either go to the Merchant Marine Academy in New London, Connecticut, or if you wanted to, you could just go before the Coast Guard. Coast Guard issued your license, engineering license. So I just went before the Coast Guard and took a test and passed the test, and then I became a third engineer, and so I was in charge of the engine room entirely during my shift.
And when was that?
That was in
43 or 44?
No, it was 40. It was sometime in 40. It was about 6 months after the invasion. You know,
after D-Day.
After D-Day, when I got my license.
Did your ship have anything to do with D-Day?
D-Day. We took troops in the Omaha beachhead.
You did?
Yeah, Rangers.
And what were you still on the same ship?
The same. Just I never got off of that ship. Yeah, but our ship took almost 4,000 Rangers in. They just piled them on. You know, we went in because we could not go. We could only go so far because we would run this ground. And they dropped rope nets over the side of the ship from the deck, and the soldiers climbed down the and landing craft. Those landing crafts came to meet the ship, and they climbed down those rope nets, and those landing crafts took them in. But the first day, we were supposed to be there on this, right there at the 6th, but it was too rough. Those landing crafts couldn't operate. So it was the 7th of June, 1945, that actually the soldiers got off the ship.
How long did it take you to unload those 4,000 troops?
Oh, quite a while.
I mean, we're talking half a day or all day?
Oh, yeah, you know, quite a while, yeah. I would say it took a good 6 or 7 hours, you know.
Were you close enough to shore that you could see what was going on at the beach?
Yeah. I'd say we could only go in about, I would estimate about maybe a little less than half a mile from the cliffs. You know, there were big cliffs there at
Omaha Beach.
That beachhead.
So did you get up out of the engine room? Could you see what was going on?
Well, it only, you could only see. You weren't allowed there while the troops were going down. We weren't allowed out. It didn't get in the way anyway.
All right.
So.
But after the troops were unloaded, could you see what was going on?
Oh yeah, well yeah, we could see those landing crafts going in, you know. And but the battleship was the Omaha. I was the battleship. It was the heavy cruiser. Was the chief ship there, and it was firing all kinds of heavy ammunition up there where the
Germans
Germans were, you know, and planes were flying over and back. That's you just by.
Do you have any?
By the thousand.
Do you have any German planes attacking at all?
No, we didn't. No.
Were the Germans shelling on the beach or offshore?
Up shore, they had up the cliff. They had a fortress built, you know, and the Omaha was firing, you know, munitions up in there, and.
Did you see any landing craft get damaged by any enemy fire?
No. But when we first got there, we saw a lot of ship at the beachhead. But what it was, they were old Liberty ships, those cheap ships. They loaded them with all kind of heavy material and ran them ashore purposely for breakwater.
Okay.
So that the landing craft could get in there with the you know less action from the
water. Yeah.
So there were a lot of those. There were about 8 or 10 of those ships that were just running on ground there for breakwater.
So after you unloaded, then what did you do?
Well, we went back. We went back toward Southampton. We left from the Isle of Wight, which is right south of Southampton, and when we got into the Sound going up there, we got rammed by a British ship, smaller, and it put a hole in the front of our ship, the bow of our ship. Not bad, but it was close to the water line. So we had to go to Portsmouth, England, there to a shipyard, and it took a day and a half to patch that up. And then after that, we took more troops in. So and we stayed. We took troops in until later on. When they captured Sherberg, which was the closest seaport. We were able to take them directly to the dock there, and they, you know.
Well, how many trips did you make over to France?
In France?
Yeah.
Oh, I'd say we made the one with the landing crafts, the landing crafts for 2 days, 2 or 3 days. And then when they captured Sherberg, then we made 2 or 3 trips into Sherberg with troops, where they could just get off, you know.
Did you ever take wounded troops back over to England?
Pardon?
Did you ever take wounded troops back to England?
No.
Did you ever have any problems going across the channel in any of your trips?
No. No, outside of being rammed by that British vessel.
Right. So, how many trips did you make to Sherberg, where you could go right into port?
I'd say three or four, but we could go ashore there.
Well, had the Germans damaged Sherberg, or had?
No, they wasn't damaged too bad. I don't know. Our ship was so big. Sherberg was a small seaport. They had to have dikes to float us up so that we could dock. Otherwise, we would run aground, you know.
Okay.
But then we'd able to go ashore. Well, I met a few French women that way.
I was going to ask you if you were able to get off ship when you were in Cherbourg.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And
Pack of cigarettes, you could have a pretty good time with a pack of cigarettes.
That was better than money, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
So what did you do? Did they have clubs or cafes or what?
No, well, yeah, they had cafes.
And how did the French treat you?
Oh, okay.
Well,
Good. But I just looking for women, French women. I wasn't looking for too many Frenchmen themselves.
But the women treated you okay?
Yeah.
But you were kind of
for a little money, you know.
So, how many times did you get off ship there in Sherberg? Every time you went in?
Well, yeah.
How many hours or days would you be there?
Well, anytime you was off duty, if you wasn't on watch, if you wasn't on your watch, you could go ashore, you know.
But then, how long would your ship stay there before you went back to England?
No, just overnight usually.
Okay.
Just enough to unload the troops and go back the next day.
Where'd you get your cigarettes?
Well, I didn't smoke, but every trip we used to make, they used to give every soldier 2 cartons of cigarettes, and every member of the ship's crew 2 cartons of cigarettes, donated by different companies. And I never smoked, so I always.
Different companies like Camels and Lucky Strikes?
Yeah, that's what they were, Camels and Lucky Strikes, sponsored by General Motors and GE or whatever. A lot of companies sponsored that, you know, for troops when we left. Every time we left, they gave the troops 2 cartons of cigarettes and gave us 2 cartons of cigarettes.
Well, when you went into Sherberg, how many packs of cigarettes did you take with you?
Well, not too many. Yeah.
So did you make any lady friends over there that you saw more than one time when you went back to Sherberg?
Not Sherberg, no. We weren't there that long.
Okay. Well then, after you had finished taking troops over to France, then what was your next assignment? What did you do?
Our next assignment?
Yeah. After taking troops over to France.
Then after the war was over with, we brought them back.
Yeah, but you know, the war went on for a period of time. So what did you do?
For a year.
What did you do after the landing?
After the landing?
Yeah. Where'd your ship do? Where'd you go?
Well, we just.
Were you still taking?
We just stayed there till another convoy, till they made up the convoy.
All right.
No matter where we went, whether we went to I take that back. We went to North Africa. We went to the Mediterranean. We never went with a convoy in the Mediterranean. The only thing they did there is usually they sent a Navy escort ahead of us, miles away, because the only danger you had in the Mediterranean was from German aircraft.
Okay.
And after they beat Rommel in North Africa, then we brought those troops. We took them in first to Morocco, so that was just shortly past Gibraltar, because that was on the western part of North Africa,
right.
and Rommel was in the eastern Egypt and further. So that's where when we took them to North Africa, that's where they got off, and they went overland towards to do the fighting, you know.
Sure, over towards the Nile River, trying to get rid of Rommel.
And then coming back when they defeated Rommel, then we went to Mezo Kabir was a seaport, and it was above Algiers, Algiers.
Okay.
And that was fun. The seaport was down here, and just to the west of that, Algiers was way up on the white cliffs up there, was way up on the cliffs, and they had steps built into that. There must have been 200 steps that, or more, that climbed to get up to.
To get up to town?
To town, yeah.
Did you do that?
Yeah. When I made that trip once, that was enough for me.
Did you?
And we took troops. They took troops from North Africa to Sicily.
And did you do that?
Yeah, we took them to Sicily. Italy never protected Sicily. We took over Sicily
pretty quickly.
Quickly, but we couldn't go ashore, and then from Sicily, they took troops in. They took troops into Italy to start the invasion of Italy. You know.
Now, there was an invasion at Anzio. Did you deliver any troops at Anzio?
No.
Where did you deliver troops in Italy?
We didn't. We delivered troops, backup troops, to Naples after they cleared Naples.
Okay. How many times did you do that?
Twice, I think.
And where were you coming from?
Well, we take them from Sicily from Sicily to
Naples.
Mm-hmm.
And at Naples, was there a port there that you could get into?
Oh yeah, that's we could get into there, but I don't know how. The original invasion must have been done with landing crafts or some kind of crafts, you know, because it wasn't very far at all, and but we only got in there after they had gone above it, had captured Naples, and were fighting farther up in northern Italy.
Had they captured Rome by that time? You know?
I probably.
And where else did you go besides there in the Mediterranean, North Africa, Sicily, and Italy? Where else did you go?
Well, after to get war brides, we went to Oslo, Norway.
Oslo, Norway.
Yeah, there were several. This was after. First, we went to England and took because there were more English war brides than any, and when they brought all the English war brides, then we started going to Le Havre, France, and they would bring French war brides and Italian war brides there. And then the last trip we made for war brides was to Bremerhaven, Germany. We brought a few. We made one trip to bring war brides back from Germany, but between that, we went to Oslo to bring back war brides from Finland, Sweden, and Norway. They had not that many war brides because they had just few troops up in those areas, you know, that married women.
Well, in Bremerhaven, was that a submarine base during the war for the Germans?
Yeah.
Now, when you got to Bremerhaven,
well, the war was over, you know.
Yeah, but what did it look like? Was there a lot of destruction from bombings and?
Well, yeah, it was pretty desolated, yeah.
Did you get off ship at all?
No.
Did you ever have any communications or dealings with any Germans in any of your trips?
No.
How about, was there any difference in the war brides as far as what country they were from? Did any of them communicate with you?
No, we weren't permitted. You know, we were told absolutely not to. We were forbidden to.
No fraternization with
No.
Okay. So you're finished bringing the war brides back. You want to go to Ohio University, so you leave the service. And why did you pick Ohio University?
I don't know. Because
It was not too far from home.
Well, they had a branch at my house, but in Portsmouth, they had a branch
Okay.
of Ohio University, but I didn't go to the branch. I just went to the
You went to the main campus in
campus.
Athens, Ohio?
yes,
And for somebody that's not familiar with Ohio, that's in the southeastern part of the
yes,
state,
yes,
southeast of Columbus.
yes.
What did you take in college? What were you aiming?
Engineering degree, industrial engineering degree.
And did you go there 4 years?
Yes.
When did you graduate from OU?
I went in 40s, about 1950. June
Got
of
it.
1950.
Got a bachelor's degree?
Bachelor's degree.
And what kind of work did you do?
Well, we had the steel plant at home, so I got employed by the steel plant in Portsmouth.
Did they have the GI Bill to help you go to college?
No, we did not. Merchant Marines got nothing. We didn't get any money. We didn't. They even didn't even give you that 5220, where they for 52 weeks you could get $20 till you were able to find a job after you got out of the military. But we didn't get anything at all.
You were just like you didn't exist.
Yeah.
Well, how did you pay for college?
I was on the ship for 4 years. Just saved enough money to pay my way to.
What were your wages on board?
Oh, well, it depends. But of course, while I was an officer, when I was an officer, I was on the government payroll then, with a pension and everything else. So when I was an officer, I was making a lot more money than I was as an oiler or what.
Well, what are you talking about? Are you talking about $200 a month or less?
Oh, more than that.
So you saved enough money to go all 4 years?
Well, yeah.
What did you do during the summer? Did you work at the steel mill?
Yeah, no, I went to summer school, so several years I went to summer school to get faster.
So
to get my degrees faster.
Did you get a job there at the steel plant right after you graduated?
Yeah.
And how long did you work there?
41 years, I think. Till 41 years.
And what was your job there?
Well, I was in the industrial engineering department. We had functions that we did,
Well, give me an idea of what some of those functions were.
Well, a lot of you have incentives for people to do better, work faster, so you'd have rates where you pay them, or if they exceed a certain percentage of production.
Right.
That say you have a standard production, and if they exceed that for their 8-hour shift, they got a little bonus for it. Well, that's one thing. We created all those differences, the rates that they would, various functions would be. But any other thing, we figured material costs. If you're going to buy new equipment, we would figure how much it's going to cost, what is the price is in that department, in the industrial engineering department.
How many co-workers did you have in the industrial engineering department there?
About six.
Did you have a boss, or were you the boss?
No, I had the boss there, but later on, a position came open for the labor relations department. So they elevated me to the labor relations department. That we did all of the negotiations for the contracts, and they could file grievances. You conducted and arbitrated the cases, and that sort of thing in that department. But labor, anything that had to do between
Between the
relations between the union employees and the company employees was head of my department in the labor department. But then later on, though, I got elevated to a position to manager of all industrial relations. So I just reported to the head of the steel plant in Portsmouth there, and had under labor relations, like the plant protection, it was under me, and your safety department, and it was part of my department as industrial relations. Anything that didn't have to do with manufacturing, that you had dealing with the government on your two organizations for health and welfare.
Your job was kind of make sure things ran smoothly.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
Now, at what stage of your career were you taken out of the industrial engineering and went to labor relations?
Oh, about 3 years after. 3 years.
3 years after industrial engineer?
Yeah.
How long were you in labor relations before they went to industrial relations?
Well, I was labor relations. Oh, I was in there for probably five years.
So, and then you went to industrial relations?
Yeah.
Was that, and did you finish your career there in industrial relations?
Well, of course, the steel plant went bankrupt, and so the only thing left in '81 it went. They sold. They went bankrupt, and the only thing happened there that McLeod Steel was a steel company in Detroit that didn't have a coke plant. They bought the coke plant. So I actually, in '81, I should have been retired, but they forced me to go with McLeod because they wanted me. So to get my pension, I had to go with the McLeod Steel, and the only thing they wanted was a coke plant. It was making coke, shipping it to their steel plant in Detroit because they didn't have any coke plant up there. And they had electric furnaces instead of blast furnaces. They had a blast furnace. That's what they needed the coke plant for, but they didn't have. So about a year after they bought out, then they went bankrupt. And so we operated under bankruptcy for a while.
Okay.
But unfortunately, they passed Congress passed the law where if you go bankrupt, that your pension is paid for by the
government.
But yeah, pension, Pension Benefit Guarantee Corporation. So I'm still drawing pension from them.
Well, how would you get the coke from your plant up to Detroit, by train or?
Train, in Norfolk and Western went railway.
So when did you finally go into retirement?
Went in retirement in 1906. Let's see. Let me think.
In the late 80s?
Yeah. I was 67 or 68 years old. So from 24 to 67, 60. Because
67 years old, so about 1971 or 2.
yeah, yeah. Well, I was more than 24. 67 years from 1924.
Yeah. So that'd be 91.
91. 19. Yeah, right down 91.
91.
Yeah.
So what'd you do in retirement? Did you get any other jobs, or did you just?
No.
What'd you do to keep busy?
Keep busy. Having 6 girls. No, well, you know, I like sports.
Now, when you were at home, were you raised in any particular religion, Catholic or
Catholic?
Catholic? And did you follow that religion up to the present time?
Yeah, pretty much so.
Do you belong to a parish now?
No, I don't belong to a parish, but
Right.
here, since I moved to, I moved to here to Cincinnati about 3 years ago.
And where did you live before that?
Well, when I married my second, when I retired,
yeah.
she had a job with the government working at a Army depot in Columbus. So I lived in Columbus for 10 years.
Where did you live in Columbus?
Bexley, a suburb of
That's where I lived when I was a kid.
Bexley.
Where'd you live in Bexley?
No, Remington Avenue.
I lived on Remington Road.
North Remington.
Yeah.
I did.
About 2 blocks from north of Broad Street.
Well, my number was 264 North Remington. You know where the school is? There was a little school category from.
Yeah.
I lived on the corner there,
Holy cow!
and there was a school there. Yeah.
I went to St. Catherine's grade school.
Did you?
In Columbus.
Oh, did you?
And I had an aunt that worked out at the General Depot there in Columbus.
Well, that's where my second wife worked.
Yeah. Yeah, I tell you what, it's a small world.
Yes, sure is.
So from Columbus, then you moved to Cincinnati?
No, from Columbus when we moved back to Portsmouth.
Portsmouth.
In 2005 we moved back to Portsmouth. My wife had a cousin who worked at the depot, and they were like sisters, you know, but they were cousins. And she got Alzheimer's, you know, and we had her in an institution there in Columbus, but it was quite expensive, so we moved to Portsmouth, and
Took her with her?
was a lot less expensive than it was in Columbus. So we moved her down there in 2005, and she died a year later in 2006.
And you stayed in Portsmouth until?
Till we came here in
2018.
October of 18.
When you came to Cincinnati, did you come here to Amber Acres? Did you live somewhere?
Yeah, one of my daughters bought the condominium apartment, and they bought it because me and my wife were back in Portsmouth by herself with no one there, you know, and they thought that we needed to come here so we would be close with some. They were worried about us.
Well, how many of your daughters live in the Cincinnati general area?
How many?
How many of your daughters?
All of them.
All of them live?
No, Angie lives in Georgia.
All right. So Jennifer, is Jennifer married?
Yeah, she's married, and she lives in Western Hills.
What's her maiden name? I mean, what's her married name? Excuse me.
Hadley, Jennifer Hadley. She worked for years at Children's Hospital. She went to the University of Cincinnati, and worked got a job at Children's Hospital, and worked entire career
How about Valerie? Is she married?
She's married.
What's her married name?
Johnson. She got a degree in accounting and CPA.
From where?
From University of Cincinnati, and she married an accountant, and they lived in Clifton area, had 2 children, a boy and a girl, and they just moved in last week to an apartment in Mount Adam, in a condominium in Mount. So sold her house in Clifton and moved to an apartment in a condominium in Mount Adams.
How about Laura?
Laura, she lives in, no, she's divorced. She lives in the same condominium as we do, as we. She has on the same floor. We have an apartment on the same floor.
Now, does she go by her married name, or does she go by her
married name?
What's her last name?
Bailey.
Bailey?
Bailey.
Bailey, B-A-I-L-E-Y?
Yeah.
How about Angie? What's her last name? Angela?
Yeah, Graver.
G-R-A-V-E-R?
G-R-A-V-E-R. She married a engineer from Cincinnati, and he left here. He went to Georgia Tech, got his degree at Georgia Tech, and he went. They won quite a few years ago. He got on the staff of Georgia. He was on the staff of Georgia Tech, and then went with some fiber optics company down there, and he's still with them.
Did I ask you what Laura's husband did?
I don't know. No, I don't know what he did really.
No,
he didn't stay married that long.
You had a daughter, Gina?
Gina, she passed away at the age of 13. She was born with a Wilms tumor on her kidney, and we didn't know it, and it erupted, and she lived for 3 years after, but finally.
She died at age 13?
13.
That's too bad. I'm sorry. How about Mona? Did Mona get married?
Mona? She's married to him.
Who's him?
Tom.
Tom Becker?
Yeah.
He's Tom Berger. He's a physician?
Yes, a surgeon.
So he's a good guy, isn't he?
Yeah, he is.
And he helped us set this up with you.
Yeah.
How about Mary Ann? Is Mary Ann married?
Yes.
And what's her?
Her husband was ended up being an Episcopal minister, and he just retired from the ministry. He was in Illinois. He was Episcopal minister in Illinois, Decatur, Illinois, and he retired last year, and they moved to North Carolina because he had a sister that lived on Emerald Isle down there, and he at first he just thought he would like to live there, but they changed their mind and they moved back to Cincinnati.
You're really fortunate because everybody except
he just moved back last month to Cincinnati.
But Angela lives. She live in Georgia. Did you say?
Yes.
But the rest of them all live in this general area.
Yeah.
You're really lucky to have the kids around. Mm-hmm. Good. So how is your health? I know you use a walker.
Well, yeah. You know, it's for balance. Just make sure I don't fall. My health's pretty good. I never had a cardiologist until recently. About a year ago, I got a cardiologist, and when I came by to renew my next appointment, he made it a year from now. So, and when I checked out that woman, that she said, I've been here all these years. He's never checked out any patient for a year for the next appointment. So
Well,
I don't know.
And how's your wife getting along?
Oh well, she's I don't know. She's having a little difficulty with memory, I think.
Is she? Okay, and is she about your age?
She's 5 years younger than me.
Okay. But other than memory problems, is she pretty good health?
Well, yeah, she's fair. Not really. She's having problems, you know.
Okay.
She's fallen several times. She fell when we first moved here, broke her hip, and
Oh, shoot.
had to have the
She had a hip replacement?
not a replacement, but a screw put in there. You
Okay.
know. She's not all that well, you know.
So, what do you do in your condominium? Who fixes the meals? Do you fix meals, or do they?
Yeah, well, I have 4 daughters or 5 daughters here.
Right.
They fixed us a lot of the meals, right? At first we were cooking, both of us, but it's gotten to the point where
Good.
they're fixing us meals.
Good. Good. All right.
One of them comes one day a week and has a meal at our house, and sometimes they even bring meals that we can put in the freezer and just take out and warm up.
Sure.
So we don't do that much cooking anymore.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. This is surely a nice place that you have here. This is a nice place that you have here. Now, Al, is there anything that I know I've asked you a lot of questions in different areas of your life and your career. Is there anything that you would like somebody to know about you or your career or your family that we haven't talked about? Other than you're not being recognized as a merchant mariner.
Well, they had a bill up before Congress, you know, but they voted it down. They wanted to give I would have gotten $25,000 because we didn't get any school, you know, to go to college, or we didn't get the benefits after the $20 a week for 52 weeks, or we got nothing. Yeah, so it has been before Congress 2 or 3 times, but they just won't pass it.
You just don't have enough influence, that's all.
I know it.
Now, you get together periodically with other merchant mariner survivors?
Pardon?
Do you get together with...
Oh, I just found out that there was an organization here at New Richmond. They got a monument there. And that they have a merchant marine
ceremony?
No, we have different things, and then it's in conjunction with the Navy too. So we meet together quite often at Montgomery Inn. About every other month we have dinners there, and just a few days ago last Sunday we went back to New Richmond, where the monument to. They have a monument to merchant marines there. So we met there. We meet there.
Well, I was supposed to see you there, but my daughter and son-in-law came in from Denver, and I had to visit with them instead of coming to see you guys. Your father-in-law told me about that, and
how long did you live in Bexley?
11 years.
11 years.
I was born in Columbus, and my father was an attorney there. And, but that was, and then I went down to southeastern Ohio into coal mine country. But that's the first person I've interviewed from my hometown, Bexley.
Same street.
On the same street I lived on. Gee. Holy cow! Gosh, I delivered newspapers on that street, and Cassingham was street over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. Tom Lee is our cameraman today. Thank you, Tom.
is he from Columbus too?
No.
No.
Doc, do you have anything you would want Albert to talk to us about?
No, it's well covered.
Mark?
Yeah, very interesting, and thanks for your service.
Well, Al, we've been at this a good while,
Yep.
and I want to thank you for
Okay,
paying
thank you.
attention, and you've got a good mind, and I appreciate your stories, and
Okay.
thank you for the interview, and thank you for your service.
Okay, thank you.